millionaire CEO, asked his son to choose a mother from high society, but he picked the maid. Before we begin, comment below and tell us where are you from, which city you're watching from, and when it's over. Be sure to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. The champagne was cold, the chandeliers blinding, and the women perfect. Every one of them was dressed to be chosen. At the center of it all, the billionaire CEO's father watched like a king selecting a queen for his empire. But in the back, a little boy in a crooked superhero cape stood on a chair, scanning the crowd as if the choice was his alone to make. Then he pointed past the diamonds and silk, past the polite smiles to a woman in a faded catering uniform, hair pinned with a pin, sleeves rolled up, smelling faintly of vanilla. And he said, loud enough for the entire garden to hear, "That's my new mom." Gasps, laughter, silence. And in that moment, an empire built on appearances began to crack. The gala, the Carter family garden, had been transformed into a scene from a magazine cover. White roses floated in crystal bowls, string quartets played under fairy lights, and servers in black ties moved like clockwork between tables dressed in gold and glass. From the terrace, William Carter could see every carefully curated detail, and none of it mattered. His father's words echoed in his head for the 100th time. A CEO needs stability, a respectable wife, a family image the world can admire. It wasn't about love. It never had been. For Richard Carter, it was about appearances, headlines, the Carter Holdings brand. Tonight's guest list was proof. 20 of the city's most elegant, most eligible women, all beautiful, all accomplished, all perfectly capable of dazzling the press. And somewhere in the crowd, his 6-year-old son, Jamie, was supposed to make friends with them. William's jaw tightened. Jamie didn't need a mother who'd treat him like a public accessory. He needed someone who saw him. And this room was full of people looking everywhere but at him. Down in the garden, Jamie had abandoned his tiny tuxedo jacket in favor of a crooked superhero cape made from a linen tablecloth. He darted between the manicured hedges yelling, "Emergency! Ice cream meltdown in progress," before leaping onto a row of decorative pillows like stepping stones. A woman in diamonds tried to coax him over. "Jamie, darling, wouldn't you like a sophisticated mother like me? I'd rather have a rocket that shoots marshmallows," he said. Sprinting away, another approached with a gift bag. "I brought you a vegan cooking kit." Jamie wrinkled his nose. "Does it taste like broccoli mixed with punishment?" William bit back a laugh from the terrace, keeping his expression neutral. He wasn't here to interfere. He was here to watch to see who, if anyone, could win his son's trust. It didn't take long to see the answer. No one. The smiles were tight, the patience thinner still. Every time Jamie's energy spilled over, the looks on their faces were the same. Control him. Not one person knelt down to his level. Not one seemed to notice his imagination burning brighter than the chandeliers. Until he vanished from the crowd entirely. William scanned the garden. No Jamie near the dessert table, none by the band. Then he spotted movement near the catering tent at the far end of the lawn. Inside, Emma Flores, in a faded catering jacket, sleeves rolled past her elbows, was wrestling with a pot of strawberry sauce that hissed and popped on the stove. "Don't explode. Don't you dare explode," she whispered to it. Jamie appeared in the doorway, 2 plastic spoons hanging from his ears like earrings. "Hi, do you have pancakes?" Emma blinked. "Not on the menu tonight. But if you keep my secret about this mildly rebellious sauce, I might be able to whip up a few with syrup, with anything you want. Except broccoli? I draw the line there." Minutes later, William spotted them again. Jamie perched on an overturned fruit crate like a tiny king, chewing on a pancake, cheeks full, grinning like the sun had come out just for him. "You're different." Jamie told her between bites. You don't smell like a perfume store. You gave me a napkin before I asked, and you make pancakes. Like you're from Planet Awesome. Emma laughed. Well, General Jamie, as chef, never reveals all her secrets. By the time the last of the champagne flutes were clinking in the main tent, Jamie was back in the garden and standing on a chair at the center of the party. His cape fluttered behind him, his chin lifted high. Dozens of eyes turned toward him, including William's. And then, the point, past the glitter, past the practiced smiles, to the catering tent, where Emma stood, frozen mid-swipe of her spatula. That's my new mom. The music faltered. Glasses stopped mid-air. A diamond bracelet clinked to the ground. Emma's eyes went wide. Wait, what? Richard Carter's voice sliced through the stunned quiet. A maid. My grandson chooses. A maid. And just like that, the night was no longer about roses and champagne. It was about a choice. One innocent, unshakable choice, and the storm it was about to unleash. Chapter 1. The choice heard round the room. The air in the Carter garden was so thick with silence, it was as if someone had cut the string section mid-note. Richard Carter's face was a study in outrage, the kind of slow, building fury that made entire boardrooms quake. "A maid," he repeated, as if saying it twice might make it sound less impossible. Emma still had the spatula in her hand, a streak of whipped cream across her hair from her last battle with the dessert table. She looked around, realizing every set of eyes in the garden had landed on her. Jamie, standing tall on the chair, doubled down. "She smells nice, makes the best pancakes in the universe. And she gave me the rank of general. I want her as my mom." A socialite in a diamond collar choked on her champagne. Another whispered too loudly. "A maid. He's 6 and already has questionable taste." Emma's first instinct was to step backward until the hedge swallowed her whole. Instead, she took one breath and planted her feet. "There's been a misunderstanding," she said, forcing her voice to stay calm. "I'm just working for the catering company. I barely know your family." Richard's gaze was ice. "Exactly. And yet you've somehow managed to influence my grandson." Emma's fingers tightened around the spatula. "Influence? I made him a pancake and listened to him talk about marshmallow rockets. That's not manipulation, Mr. Carter. That's basic kindness." A ripple went through the crowd. No one spoke to Richard Carter like that. William had been silent up until now, scanning his son's face. Jamie wasn't joking, and he wasn't staging some childish rebellion. His choice had been genuine. He stepped forward. "Emma, would you join me for a word?" Richard cut in sharply. "William, you can't be serious. She's staff. 5 minutes." "Dad." William's voice was firm. "Final." Jamie leapt from the chair, grabbed Emma's hand like she might vanish, and followed his father toward a quieter corner of the garden. They stopped near a stone fountain, the noise of the party now a distant hum. William knelt to Jamie's height. "Champ, I need to talk to Emma about something important. Think you can wait by the treehouse for a few minutes? You're not going to make her leave, are you?" "We're just going to talk," William promised. Jamie gave Emma a quick salute before running off. When William stood, the CEO mask was back on, polished, composed, but his eyes held something softer. "I'm sorry for what happened back there. My father can be intense." Emma folded her arms. "Intense is a polite word for prejudiced." "You're not wrong," he admitted, "but you handled him better than most people would. You've got backbone. Backbone doesn't pay rent." That seemed to hit him. He hesitated, then took a breath, like he was about to make a dangerous offer. "Look, I know this is going to sound crazy, but my son has never connected with anyone the way he did with you tonight. He lost his mother at birth. Every woman I've introduced to him, he's been polite but distant. Until you, Emma stayed silent, letting him get to the point. I'm asking if you'd consider staying at the mansion for 2 weeks, not as a replacement, just be around him. Let him see that you can't be his mom, that you have your own life. It'll help him let go without breaking him all at once. Her brows shot up. So, you want me to break a 6-year-old's heart? I want to protect him before it gets worse, William said quietly. I'll pay. Well, room, board, and enough to cover months of expenses. She thought about the rent due in 3 days, about the catering job that ended next week. How well, when he named the figure, she nearly dropped the spatula. Emma crossed her arms tighter. I have conditions. I sleep in the guest room with the door locked. No romantic confusion. No weird looks. No misunderstandings. I can leave anytime I want. And if your father disrespects me again, I'll give it right back to him, and you stay out of it. Also, I cook for Jamie however I want. Whenever I want, pancakes included. William almost smiled. Agreed. And when the 2 weeks are up, you don't try to make me stay. No using Jamie to change my mind. Deal. They shook hands. The touch lingered a fraction too long for comfort. Or maybe that was the first sign that comfort wasn't what either of them was looking for anymore. Across the garden, Richard Carter was still watching, face unreadable. And somewhere, in the shadows, a boy in a superhero cape was grinning like the mission was already halfway won. Chapter 2. The Mansion and the Map. The next morning, Emma stood at the base of the Carter estate's sweeping drive, backpack slung over one shoulder, suitcase rolling behind her with a limp wheel that squeaked every third step. She stopped halfway up the stone path and craned her neck. My God, she whispered, is this a house or a shopping mall? The mansion rose out of the perfectly clipped hedges like something from a period film, massive white columns, a fountain spraying into the morning sun. 3 luxury cars parked in a perfect half circle, each gleaming like a jewel in a display case. The front door opened, and a man stepped out mid-50s, immaculate black suit, posture so straight it could slice glass. You must be Miss Emma Flores, he said in a polished British accent. I am Winston, the Carter family's butler. You're a real butler, she blurted before she could stop herself. He raised one eyebrow ever so slightly. For 3 generations, miss. May I take your luggage? No need, she said quickly. Not heavy, just 2 outfits and a pair of flannel pajamas with tacos printed on them. For a fraction of a second, she thought she saw the corner of his mouth twitch. Then it was gone. Inside, the entry hall was a cathedral of Welth marble floors, twin staircases curling upward like ribbons, and a chandelier big enough to signal ships at sea. Oil paintings of stern-faced Carters from centuries past stared down at her as if she'd already failed their inspection. Wow, she murmured. Even stomach growls must echo in here. Pardon? Miss? Winston asked. Nothing. Just grand. Very grand. A sudden whoop echoed down the staircase. Jamie appeared at the landing, sliding down the banister like a pint-sized stuntman, superhero cape flapping. You came, he yelled, racing toward her. He didn't stop until he launched himself into her arms. She staggered, but caught him, laughing. A promise is a promise, General, she said, spinning him once. Come on, I'll show you your room. It's right next to mine, and it has a bathtub that looks like a pool. The guest room turned out to be bigger than her entire apartment. A king-size bed dressed in crisp linen, a walk-in closet large enough to house a family of 4, a balcony overlooking a garden so manicured it could have been painted. The bathroom gleamed with white marble and chrome, complete with a sunken tub fitted with jets. Emma dropped her suitcase by the bed. This place is ridiculous. It even has a remote for the curtains. Jamie demonstrated, pressing a button to sweep them open, flooding the room with light. And the bathtub has jets. I've tried to swim in it. Winston, who had followed at a polite distance, cleared his throat. Lunch will be served at 12. Thanks, Mr. Carter asks that you take some time to familiarize yourself with the house. I will be your guide. When he left, Jamie whispered, More. We could explore without him. I'm way better at secret tours. The tour turned into a comedy of wrong turns. This is the formal living room, and this is the informal living room, Jamie said, opening identical double doors. You have 2 living rooms. 3. But the third one's boring. Grandpa uses it to watch boring news. They wandered through the main library, then a second library for books that don't fit in the main one, and hallways that all looked like perfect mirror copies of each other. Okay, Emma said, after 30 minutes. Little guide, where's the kitchen again? Jamie pointed confidently. This way. 10 minutes later, she was alone in a hallway of closed doors, Jamie having run off after spotting a ginger cat and completely lost. All right, smart house, she said aloud. Where's the kitchen? To her surprise, a smooth, computerized female voice answered. I didn't understand your command. Please repeat. Emma froze. Who said that? I am the Carter Home's virtual assistant. How may I help you? Take me to the kitchen. Blue lights blinked on along the floor, tracing a path. Emma followed, like she was in a sci-fi movie. The kitchen was straight out of a chef's fantasy. A central island big enough to land a helicopter. Double professional ovens. 2 massive stainless steel refrigerators. She reached for the nearest fridge. No handle, just a sleek panel. She ran her fingers along the surface until a cold, mechanical voice said, Access denied. User not recognized. What do you mean, not recognized? I'm a person? Please register your fingerprint on the panel. Panel, I just want water. She tapped at random buttons until red lights started flashing. Warning. Unauthorized access attempt. Hey, calm down. You paranoid fridge. Winston appeared in the doorway, looking equal parts alarmed and resigned. Miss Flores, what are you doing? Trying to hydrate. Your fridge has trust issues. I'll set up your access later, he said dryly. The kitchen has security protocols. What are you storing in there? The crown jewels. Before Winston could answer, a deeper voice cut in. What was that alarm? William stood in the doorway. Perfectly tailored suit. Expression unreadable. Just a misunderstanding with the house system, Winston said. Emma smiled weakly. Your fridge doesn't like me. Probably because I'm not wearing diamonds. For half a second, she thought William might smile, but then he nodded curtly and left as if the room was too small for the both of them. Emma exhaled. Well, she muttered to herself, this is going to be fun. Emma's first steps into the mansion reveal the stark gap between her world and theirs, but also Jamie's instinctive pull toward her warmth. The comedy keeps the tone light, but William's distance and Richard's looming disapproval remain in the background, promising the next wave of conflict. Chapter 3. Pancakes and Bubble Baths. Jamie appeared at Emma's door at precisely 7. Still in pajamas, hair sticking up like he'd been wrestling a tornado. Time for magic pancakes, he announced, bouncing on his toes. Emma, still half asleep, peeked at the glowing digital clock on the nightstand. General, even the birds are still sleeping. The birds are lazy. I already brushed my teeth, fed my fish, and made my bed. Now, I need pancakes to have superhero energy. In the kitchen, Emma tied one of the mansion's pristine white aprons around her waist, feeling like a trespasser in a showroom. Jamie pulled a stool up to the counter, chin barely clearing it. Lesson 1, she told him, cracking eggs into a bowl. The batter must be treated with respect, like a fragile dream. Lesson 2, she flipped the whisk in her hand like a baton, tossed the pancake into the air, and pray it doesn't stick to the ceiling. Is that even possible? only for professionals and people who get lucky on the third try. The pancake did, in fact, stick to the ceiling. Jamie's laugh exploded out of him so hard he nearly fell off his stool. Now we have a pet pancake. Winston appeared in the doorway, looked up at the ceiling, sighed deeply, and walked out without a word. Through the glass doors, William stood in the garden with a coffee mug. Watching, Emma was tossing batter, Jamie was clapping, and for the first time in weeks, his son's laughter rang unrestrained. It did something to him, an ache he didn't expect. That afternoon, Emma discovered something that made her freeze mid-step. Jamie had never had a real bubble bath. What do you mean, never? The nanny said, bubbles make a mess, and boys don't need frills. Emma knelt to his level, her voice warm but fierce. That nanny didn't understand life's greatest treasures. She turned on the taps, poured in soap until the bubbles rose like clouds, and watched Jamie's eyes widen in awe. It's like a marshmallow ocean, he whispered. And look. Emma grabbed a straw, dipped it in, and blew a giant bubble that floated before popping on his nose. They built foam castles, sailed soap boats, and at one point, Jamie gave himself a bubble beard and strutted around pretending to be Grandpa Richard giving orders. William passed by the hallway and stopped. From the open bathroom door came the sound of Jamie's laughter, deep, uninhibited, almost musical. It rooted him in place. He couldn't remember the last time his son had laughed like that. Dinner that night was different. Emma announced a new game, funny voices at the table. Each person had to describe their day in a silly voice. Jamie went first as a robot. Emma went next as a pirate. William resisted until Jamie dared him to try. He chose a cowboy drawl. To Jamie's utter delight, even Winston got caught in the game, delivering a deadpan R past the potatoes that made Jamie spit water back into his cup. Richard appeared in the doorway, mid-laughter, his gaze scanning the scene. A maid turning dinner into a comedy show, his serious son grinning, his grandson glowing. He said nothing, but a crease of thought appeared between his brows before he walked away. Later, Emma stepped out onto her balcony, arms folded against the cool night air. The garden stretched below, lit in soft gold. You can't sleep either. William's voice came from behind. He stood in the doorway, holding 2 mugs of tea. She accepted one. It's too quiet here. My apartment has traffic, neighbors arguing, dogs barking. This feels like the inside of a snow globe. Must be strange, he said softly. Not bad, just different. They stood in companionable silence for a while, the glow from the garden brushing their faces. Finally, William asked, why are you so natural with Jamie? Most people either try too hard to impress him or avoid him altogether. Emma took a slow sip. Because I remember what it's like to be a kid and not be taken seriously. After my parents died, my aunts would talk about me like I wasn't even in the room, stubborn, messy, like I was a problem to solve instead of a person to love. I'm sorry. No need. It made me strong. And it taught me something. Kids need to be heard, not just tolerated. William looked at her for a long moment. You're the first person who's ever seen him that way. Emma's eyes met his. The air between them shifted, almost imperceptibly. He cleared his throat. About our agreement. Instead of 2 weeks, what would you think about staying 3 months? Her brows lifted. 3 months is a long time. The longer I stay, the harder it'll be when I leave. What if it didn't have to be temporary? The words seemed to surprise even him. They both looked away at the same moment, but the thought hung there alive, dangerous and quietly thrilling. Jamie's joy with Emma is the first turning point. William starts to see her not as an employee, but as someone who's given his son something money and status never could. The bubble bath, the dinner game, and the balcony talk plant, the seed for deeper emotional stakes. Chapter 4. The Return of Veronica. The rain started just after noon, a soft patter against the mansion's glass walls. Emma was in the kitchen, teaching Jamie how to measure flour without creating a snowstorm, when the front doorbell chimed low. Deliberate and far too elegant to belong to a delivery driver, Winston appeared, smoothing his jacket before opening the door. The scent hit first expensive perfume with sharp, cold edges, then came the click of high heels against marble. Emma glanced up from the counter just in time to see her. Tall, perfect posture, hair so glossy it caught the chandelier light, a cream coat draped over her shoulders as though the rain had dared not touch her. "Hello, Winston," the woman said, removing oversized sunglasses. "I'm here to see William." "Of course, Ms. Montgomery. This way." Jamie froze mid-stir. Oh no. He ducked behind Emma like he'd spotted a villain in a movie. They found William in the study, reviewing contracts. His eyes lifted, and for the briefest second, something unreadable passed over his face. "Veronica," he said, each syllable flat, deliberate. "You sound surprised." She smiled the kind of smile designed to win over photographers and juries alike. "I was in the city, and I thought I'd stop by. We never had a proper goodbye." William's jaw tightened. "We had enough of one." Emma lingered in the hallway, Jamie clutching her hand. She tried to step back, but Jamie whispered fiercely, "Don't leave me." Veronica's gaze followed the sound of his voice. "Jamie," she cooed, "you've grown. Come give Aunt Veronica a hug." He shook his head, gripping Emma's arm tighter. Something flickered in Veronica's eyes, annoyance, quickly smoothed over. "And who's this?" Her gaze slid to Emma, scanning from her flower-speckled hair to her rolled-up sleeves. "This is Emma Flores," William said evenly. "She's here for Jamie." Veronica's perfectly arched brow lifted. "Here for him?" "She's staying with us for a while," William said, his tone firm enough to end the subject. But Veronica wasn't the type to let things end. "How interesting," she said, turning back to him. "First, you won't let me into Jamie's life because you think I'm a distraction. Now you've brought in..." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Your l'enfantradi, say." A maid. Emma's cheeks burned, but before she could respond, Jamie stepped forward. "She's not just a maid. She's my friend, and she makes better pancakes than you." Veronica's smile faltered, and Emma bit back a laugh. Later, Emma found William in the hallway outside his study, staring at the rain. "Do you want to tell me who she is?" Emma asked. He took a slow breath. "We were engaged for a year. She ended it when she realized Jamie would always come first. And now she's testing the waters. Or testing me. Probably both." Emma crossed her arms. "She doesn't seem like the bubble bath type." William gave the ghost of a smile. "No, she was more gala dinners and photo spreads, and she liked Jamie when it was convenient. And now she's here." "Yes," he said quietly, "which means things are about to get complicated." Complicated was putting it lightly. The next morning, Veronica was in the kitchen at 8 a, perched on a bar stool in silk pajamas, sipping coffee like she'd never left. She watched Emma and Jamie make breakfast, commenting on everything: Emma's hair, her interesting cooking methods, the fact that she seemed very comfortable here for a temporary guest. By the time William walked in, Emma's patience was fraying. "Morning," he said, scanning the scene. "Everything all right?" "Peachy," Emma muttered, flipping a pancake a little harder than necessary. Jamie leaned toward William. "Dad?" "She's trying to replace Emma." William's eyes flicked between his son and Veronica, and though he said nothing, Emma saw it. The decision forming, the quiet, unshakable resolve. This chapter shifts the story's tone. Emma's easy bond with Jamie now faces its first real threat. Veronica embodies the world William comes from, the kind of life Emma doesn't belong in. But Jamie's loyalty plants a seed of conflict that will force William to choose where his future and his heart truly lies. Chapter 5. The Dinner Party Test. The invitation arrived the way all Carter events did, hand-delivered, embossed, and written in a script so formal, Emma half expected it to be in Latin. Mr. Richard Carter requests your presence at a private dinner. Sabin, 00 p.m. Is this for me? Emma asked, holding the heavy envelope. Winston nodded with a look that was almost sympathetic. I believe you've been summoned. Jamie peeked over her shoulder. You'll come, right? Dad will be there. And Grandpa. And probably all the boring people. Emma smiled faintly. I'll need a dress that doesn't smell like pancakes. The dining room that night was a cathedral of crystal and candlelight. A table long enough to require its own postal code. Silver polished to a mirror. Wine glasses that looked too fragile to breathe near. Richard sat at the head, posture straight as a blade. William was to his right, Veronica to his left, in a crimson gown, designed to command every eye in the room. Emma was led to a seat halfway down the table, between two socialites who introduced themselves in voices dripping with polite dismissal. The first course hadn't even arrived before the questions began. So, Emma, one of the women drawled, how did you meet William? Through Jamie, Emma said lightly. We hit it off over breakfast cereal. A ripple of polite laughter moved down the table, polite, but edged. And before that, you clean houses. Emma took a slow sip of water. I still do. Sometimes I like seeing a job finished in one day. In this house, I'm not sure I could ever finish. A few surprised chuckles. Even William's mouth twitched. The courses arrived with the precision of a military parade roasted quail, saffron risotto, something involving truffles that Emma suspected cost more than her month's rent. Midway through the main course, Richard turned the conversation toward her directly. Emma, I'm curious, he said, voice carrying over the table. What do you think you can offer my grandson that the best schools, the best staff, and the best options have not? The room quieted. Forks paused midair. Emma felt every gaze settle on her. Veronica's most of all. She set down her fork, folding her hands calmly. I can't compete with the best schools or the best staff. I don't have the money, the influence, or the designer gowns. A faint smirk from Veronica. But I can listen to him, Emma continued. I can remember the names of his stuffed animals, make up stories before bed, and care about the small things he cares about. Sometimes, that's what makes a kid feel safe, not just the big, shiny things. Silence. William's gaze on her was unreadable. Richard's expression barely shifted, but his eyes lingered. After dinner, as guests drifted toward the drawing room, Emma slipped out to the balcony for air. She'd only been there a moment before William joined her. Hands in his pockets. You held your own in there, he said quietly. I wasn't aware. It was a contest. With my father. Everything is a test, and you passed. She glanced at him. That's not the same as him liking me. No, William admitted, but it's the first step. From the doorway, Veronica watched them, a shadow against the candlelight, and Emma felt it, the shift in the air. This wasn't over. This chapter deepens the class divide theme and shows Emma's quiet strength in hostile territory. It cements her as someone who doesn't shrink under scrutiny, a quality William and Jamie both see, and one Veronica and Richard will either have to respect or fight harder against. Chapter 6. Rain and Revelations. The storm rolled in without warning, wind pressing against the windows, rain drumming the roof like an impatient visitor. Emma was in the library with Jamie, halfway through a makeshift fort of blankets and sofa cushions. When the lights flickered, "Uh-oh," Jamie whispered, eyes wide. A low boom of thunder shook the glass. The lights went out completely. From the doorway came William's voice, calm but firm. "Everyone okay in here?" "We're fine," Emma said, peeking out from under the blanket roof. "But your mansion just turned into a haunted house." Jamie grinned. "We need flashlights and snacks, lots of snacks." They gathered in the kitchen by the dim glow of a battery lantern Winston had produced from some mysterious drawer. Emma rummaged through cabinets, pulling out crackers, marshmallows, and a forgotten bag of chocolate chips. William leaned against the counter, watching her with a small smile. "You're awfully calm for someone trapped in a storm in an unfamiliar house." Emma shrugged. "I grew up in a town where the power went out. If someone sneezed too hard, you get used to it." Jamie was already arranging marshmallows into a tower on a plate. "Dad, can we make s'mores in the fireplace?" Minutes later, the three of them were in the sitting room, the fire snapping warm light across the walls. They roasted marshmallows on long skewers, the rain pounding steadily outside. When Jamie finally curled up under a blanket, drifting towards sleep, William lowered his voice. "You're good with him." Emma stared into the fire. "I like him, and I think he likes me, because I'm not trying to be anything else." William hesitated, then said, "His mother, I never talk about her with him. She died the day he was born. I didn't know how to tell him without making him feel guilty for existing." Emma looked at him, surprised by the rawness in his tone. Kids don't need perfect words. They just need truth, given gently. He gave a short, almost bitter laugh. "Truth isn't gentle in my family." "Then maybe you have to be the one to change that." Jamie stirred, eyes half open. "Dad?" "Yes, champ. Do you think Mom would have liked Emma?" William froze. The question hung in the warm air, louder than the storm outside. "I think," William said slowly, "she would have liked that you're happy. And she would have liked Emma for helping make that happen." Jamie smiled faintly and drifted back to sleep. They sat in silence after that, the kind where nothing needs to be filled. Emma broke it first. "You don't talk about her often." William's gaze stayed on the fire. "Talking about her feels like opening a door I'm not ready to walk through." But tonight didn't feel as hard. Emma didn't answer, but she reached over, her fingers brushing his hand, not holding. Not yet. Just enough to remind him he wasn't sitting in the dark alone. Later, when the power came back, neither of them moved right away. The light seemed almost intrusive after the quiet glow of the fire. Outside, the rain softened, but the air inside had shifted in a way neither of them could name. This chapter is their first true moment of shared vulnerability. William reveals the loss he's been guarding for years. Jamie voices the question no one dared ask. And Emma becomes more than just a guest in the mansion. She becomes a keeper of their unspoken grief. Chapter 7. The Break in the Glass. It happened on a Tuesday, the kind of day that felt too ordinary to carry any danger. Emma was in the sunroom with Jamie, helping him glue popsicle sticks into what he insisted would be a spaceship. When the sound split the air, a sharpie, violent crash of glass breaking somewhere in the house, Jamie's head snapped up. Emma's hands froze mid-air. Another sound followed a muffled thud, then silence. "Stay here," Emma whispered, her voice low but steady. Jamie's eyes were wide. "Emma, I mean it." "Jamie." "Don't move." She stood, heart pounding, and stepped into the hallway just as Winston appeared from the other direction, already heading toward the sound. His face was pale. "Tight. North wing window," he said under his breath. "Mr. Carter's study." Emma glanced back toward the sunroom, but Jamie was already behind her, gripping her sweater. They reached the study at the same time William did. The heavy glass of the French doors lay in jagged pieces on the carpet. The wind carried in the scent of rain-soaked leaves. For a moment, it looked like an accident, until Emma spotted the stone on the floor with a note wrapped around it. William bent to pick it up, unrolling the damp paper. His eyes flicked over the words, his jaw tightening with each line. "What does it say?" Emma asked. He hesitated, then read aloud. "You don't belong with them. Leave before you regret it." Yo, her stomach dropped. "Them, my family," William said. His voice was even, but the muscle in his cheek twitched. Winston moved to secure the broken door, but William's attention had shifted to Jamie, still in the doorway, small and silent. "It's okay," William told him, crossing the room and crouching down. "No one's getting in here. You're safe." Jamie's voice was small. Why would someone do that? Because some people think hurting others makes them stronger, William said. But they're wrong. Jamie's eyes slid to Emma. "Can she stay in my room tonight?" Emma looked at William. For once, he didn't hesitate. "Yes, she can." That night, Jamie fell asleep between them, his head on Emma's shoulder. William lay on the other side, awake far longer than he wanted to admit, listening to the even rhythm of Jamie's breathing. He caught Emma's eyes in the dim light. "This isn't just about my father's disapproval anymore." Emma nodded. "I figured. A beat passed. I'm not letting you leave," he said quietly, almost to himself. The break in the glass is both literal and symbolic, an intrusion into their physical safety and into the fragile trust forming between them. It marks the first time William openly claims Emma as someone he needs to keep close, not just for Jamie's sake, but his own. Chapter 8. The Ultimatum. The break-in should have brought the family together. Instead, it became fuel. Richard summoned William to his office the next morning, an oak-paneled room that smelled faintly of old cigars and older authority. Emma wasn't invited, but she heard the voices from the hall anyway. "This is exactly what I warned you about." Richard's tone was icy. "Clipped, she's a liability. William, a target. And now my grandson has been put at risk." "She had nothing to do with the break-in," William replied, his voice low but taut. Richard leaned forward, his hands folded over a leather blotter. "The optics. William, the press, the board. A woman with no background check in my house and your house, while our family name is under constant scrutiny." Emma didn't need to hear the rest to understand. Richard wasn't talking about safety. He was talking about status. She was in the foyer, debating whether to slip away. When William emerged, his expression was unreadable, but his hands were fists at his sides. "What did he say?" she asked. William hesitated. "He gave me an ultimatum." Emma felt the air thicken between them. "Which is that you leave by the end of the week, or I lose my place at the helm of the company." Her chest tightened. "William, I'm not sending you away." He cut in, his voice sharper than he intended. "Not after everything with Jamie. Not after—" He stopped himself, jaw tightening, but he's not bluffing. "Emma, if I defy him, it's war." That night at dinner, Jamie sensed it, the invisible tension stretching across the table. "Is Grandpa mad again?" he asked, eyes flicking between them. William managed a smile. "Grandpa and I just see things differently." Jamie frowned. "Well, tell him I'm not different. I'm still me, and Emma's still Emma. And she's the one who makes the pancakes, so she stays." Emma bit back a laugh, but the words lodged in William's mind like an anchor. 2 days later, Richard made his move. He arrived during breakfast, unannounced, Veronica trailing behind like a shadow in pearls. "William," Richard said, ignoring Emma entirely. "The board meets tomorrow. They're aware of the situation. You have one chance to resolve it before they make a recommendation." Emma set down her coffee. "You mean fire me?" Richard's eyes swept over her like she was a misplaced vase. "I mean remove yourself from a position you were never qualified for." William's chair scraped back against the marble. She's not an employee. Father, she's part of this household. The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. Richard's lips thinned. Then you've made your choice. He turned, his footsteps echoing as he left. Veronica lingered just long enough to offer Emma a smile laced with victory. When the door closed, William exhaled slowly. I just burned my last bridge with him. Emma's voice was quiet. You didn't have to do that. Yes, he said, meeting her eyes. I did. This is the moment William shifts from passive defiance to active choice. He publicly stakes his position beside Emma, even at the cost of his father's approval and his own career. For Emma, it's proof she's no longer just a guest in Jamie's life. She's become a line William is willing to draw in permanent ink. Chapter 9. The goodbye that wasn't. The decision came to Emma in the quiet hours before dawn, when the mansion felt like a museum still, cold, echoing with things unsaid. She couldn't be the reason William lost everything. She couldn't be the shadow over Jamie's future. So she packed in silence a small duffel bag, just enough for the bus ride back to her apartment. The smell of vanilla from her sweater clung to the air. She left a note on the kitchen counter. Jamie, you're braver than most grown-ups I know. I'll always be proud of you. She had just reached for the doorknob when a voice stopped her. Going somewhere. William stood in the hallway, hair rumpled, t-shirt hanging loose. His eyes went to the bag in her hand, then back to her face. You weren't supposed to wake up, she murmured. Apparently, my instincts don't sleep, he said, stepping closer. You think you're protecting us by leaving. Emma swallowed hard. You don't need another scandal. William, your father, my father, made his choice. I've made mine. Jamie's voice echoed from the stairs. Emma. He patted down in his pajamas, holding the note she'd left. You were going to leave without saying goodbye. Her throat tightened. I was trying to make it easier. It's not easier, he said fiercely, marching up to her and planting himself between her and the door. If you go, I'll just come find you. And Dad will, too. William's voice was quiet, steady. He's right. We don't want easier. We want you. Something inside her broke not in pain, but in surrender. She dropped the bag. William caught it before it hit the floor, setting it aside. Jamie threw his arms around her waist. She bent to hold him, and over his head, William's gaze found hers. No grand speeches, just a look that said everything. You belong here. They stayed like that until the first light of morning spilled across the foyer. No one mentioned the note again. No one mentioned the bag. It was as if the act of not leaving became its own silent contract. This is the emotional crest. Emma's breaking point, colliding with William and Jamie's refusal to let her go. It cements the found family theme, showing that their bond has moved beyond convenience or circumstance into choice and permanence. Chapter 10. The choice in the open. It was supposed to be another polished, predictable Carter foundation, gala champagne towers, polite applause, and conversations that smelled faintly of money. Emma hadn't planned to attend. Crowded rooms of judgmental strangers were not her arena. But William had asked no, insisted she come. You've spent enough time being whispered about. He'd told her, it's time they see you the way we do. The ballroom glittered under crystal chandeliers. A string quartet played in the corner, their music threading through the low hum of conversation. Emma stood near the back, wearing a navy dress that brushed her knees borrowed from Winston's daughter. With a few stitches Emma had added herself. She felt the eyes before she saw them, the slow glances from bejeweled women, the polite nods from men in tuxedos. And then Richard appeared near the stage, Veronica at his side, her smile gleaming like a blade. When William took the microphone to give his speech, the crowd stilled. He began with the usual, thanking donors, praising the foundation's achievements. But then his voice shifted, warmer. There's one more thing I want to say tonight. he said. This year, I learned something that changed my life. That strength isn't just in numbers or in the size of a check. It's in the people you choose to stand beside you, no matter the cost. A murmur rippled through the room. William's gaze found her across the crowd. I want to thank the person who reminded me of that. Someone who walked into our lives and gave my son laughter, gave our home warmth, and reminded me that love is worth more than approval. He extended his hand. The crowd parted like water. Emma felt every step as she walked toward him, the stares, the whispers, the flashes of disbelief. She placed her hand in his, and he drew her close enough for the whole room to see it wasn't charity or scandal. It was choice. Richard's jaw tightened. Veronica's smile faltered. But Jamie, in his little suit, stood near the front, grinning wide enough to light the chandelier himself. William didn't kiss her. Not here. Not for them. But the way he held her hand, the way his thumb brushed her knuckles, was louder than anything he could have said. When the applause began, it wasn't polite, it was genuine, led by the people who mattered least to the board, but most to the community. Emma realized she wasn't just being seen, she was being claimed, openly, in the very space designed to keep people like her out. This chapter resolves the class divide and public approval arcs in one moment. William's choice is public and irreversible, and Emma's presence is no longer something to be explained or defended. It's the final turning point before the reflective close. The life they chose. The house didn't feel like a mansion anymore. It felt like home. There were still board meetings William had to endure, still icy silences from Richard, still society pages that pretended not to notice the three of them in the park on Sunday mornings. But there was also laughter echoing from the kitchen, mismatched mugs in the cabinet, and a little boy who now fell asleep without needing the hallway light left on. On one of those evenings, rain pattering softly against the windows, Emma sat curled on the sofa with a book. Jamie was sprawled on the rug, building another spaceship out of popsicle sticks. William came in quietly, 2 mugs of tea in hand. He set one beside her and sank into the seat across from her. You realize, he said, that we never got around to defining whatever this is. Emma smiled faintly. Some things don't need definitions, just choices. And this one, her eyes softened. This one's already made. Jamie yawned, shuffling over to wedge himself between them. Can we watch a movie? William reached for the remote. What do you want to watch? Jamie grinned. Anything. As long as we all stay here. Emma leaned her head against William's shoulder, and for the first time, there was no sense of borrowed time, no undercurrent of uncertainty, only the quiet truth that they had stopped waiting for life to happen and had chosen it. Together, tell us, what are your thoughts on this story? Leave a comment and rate it from 0 to 10. And don't forget to subscribe and tap the notification bell so you never miss our latest stories. And don't miss out. Click here to watch more now.